But Florida will feel the impacts for a long time. The storm destroyed homes, flooded neighborhoods, knocked out power to millions, and created dramatic rescues. Our team of reporters share stories from the storm, while our meteorologists help you better understand the science behind it.
If you look at this, absolutely, I thought my neighbors were dead.
The water was so cold.
In here, we took about 10 inches of water.
You'll hear from the storm survivors.
As soon as we closed the door to the bathroom, it hit.
We'll explain why water was pushed out of Tampa Bay.
There's something called reverse or negative storm surge.
And find out how a trash dumpster ended up on a roof.
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
And a very good morning and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm WJLA Senior Meteorologist Brian Vandegraff. Well, rescue crews are still searching for survivors of Hurricane Milton this morning, more than 36 hours after the Category 3 storm made landfall. A 14-year-old boy was one of the last of at least 200 people pulled to safety. Rescuers spotted him floating on a piece of fence near Tampa. He was apparently at a friend's house during the storm and didn't think it would get so bad. And about 30 miles off of Longboat Key, Florida, the U.S. Coast Guard rescued a man who was clinging to a cooler. The man ran into problems with his boat's rudder as he was headed back to port. Flooding was a big problem, but thankfully not as bad as initially feared, especially in the Tampa Bay area. Early reports showed the surge topped about 7 feet down near Fort Myers. Since Tampa was north of the eye, the water was actually sucked out of the bay instead of blown into it. And this is what some neighborhoods that felt Milton's wrath looked like yesterday. Water still surrounded many homes, debris littered streets and yards, and of course, some of that debris likely left over from Hurricane Helene 2 weeks ago. The storm triggered an historic tornado outbreak as well, including this one caught on home security cam near Palm Beach. Dozens of twisters were spotted across the state, and at least 16 deaths now are blamed on the storm, and nearly 2.5 million homes and businesses continue to be without power. And once the storm passed, the Great Return was underway. Hundreds of thousands of people who evacuated from Florida's Gulf Coast headed home, and that created traffic jams on some of the highways. Well, this morning we have team coverage from across Florida this morning, continuing with our Danny Travis, starting us off here in Sarasota.
To Sarasota residents' surprise, a major catastrophe is not what happened here Wednesday night.
I don't think it was as bad as it could have been, that's for sure. It could have been a lot worse.
It's not too bad. I was afraid it was going to be a lot worse.
This area was still cleaning up sand covering roadways from Helene, and fire officials say they're covered again. Surrounding neighborhoods to Siesta Key, like Granada and San Remo, also feeling the effects. Broken fences and toppled trees, some of which even fell on top of houses.
See that that's a big pine tree over there. That thing's probably 100 feet tall, and that one there, that was what I was worried about too, or these trees could fall on the house, you know.
Roads throughout the area are carpeted with debris, making some impassable. Not far away, this auto shop's roof was torn off, landing on top of cars in the lot. Massive billboards also ripped up or completely blown over. And even the biggest of boats in the Sarasota Bay could not withstand the triple-digit wind speeds.
It was not that catastrophic. Obviously, there were effects to it, but it wasn't the catastrophic storm that everybody was prepared for.
Still, the resilience of this county is shining bright after two major hurricanes exactly 2 weeks apart.
2 hurricanes, I'm a Floridian, right?
And one of the iconic sights of the storm that remains only just the very tattered parts of the roof of Tampa's baseball stadium. Very little of it left on top of Tropicana Field. Remarkably, no one was injured inside there. The Teflon fabric had been in place for more than 34 years. This morning, people across Tampa are trying to resume a sense of normalcy. And Karis Harmon is now in Tampa with that part of the story.
It was even difficult for our crew to make it to Tampa. Traffic on the interstate heading that direction was slow moving the day after Milton made landfall. Many of those cars filled with evacuees trying to make it home. Some taking back roads near Lakeland to beat traffic, but many running into trouble. Flooding on Dean Still Road and other roadways nearby made it difficult for cars to safely get down the road.
Made it this far, but my car started stalling out, so I just had to park it and just kind of waited out here.
Many evacuees who just wanted to make it home while also beating traffic on the interstate had to turn around and jump into that same traffic because the floodwaters were just too high. even for our crew. But when we finally made it to Tampa, this is what we saw.
We were very lucky here.
This man has a property company in the area.
There's a lot of trees down, a lot of power lines down, a lot of superficial damage, a lot of street flooding.
He says the community is still recovering from damage from Hurricane Helene.
I can't tell you how many streets are still piled up with debris.
And one of the biggest stories from Milton is just how many tornadoes it created. You can check out this map. It shows more than 100 tornado warnings that were issued across Florida just on Wednesday alone. Trained spotters reported at least 38 tornado sightings. And these tornadoes led to scenes like this. That is a dumpster that ended up on someone's roof. You can imagine just how strong that tornado had to be to lift it up there and drop it off. Unfortunately, some of those twisters did turn deadly. The Spanish Lakes Country Club Village in Fort Pierce sustained significant tornado damage as well on Wednesday. As many as 6 people were killed. Elsewhere along Florida's East Coast, people had stories of survival. We have 2 reports, beginning with Luli Ortiz.
A path of destruction across Martin County. Drone footage from a residence shows homes in the Port Salerno community decimated after Wednesday's tornado passed through. When Terry Root walked out of her home after taking cover, she said the grief immediately took over.
If you look at this, absolutely, I thought my neighbors were dead. Post-traumatic syndrome doesn't even fit.
The twister narrowly missing Tom Perusi's home. It easily toppled his boat.
We went into the bathroom, our concrete bathroom, and stayed there. And when the whole shook, everything shook. And when we got out, I took it serious. I thought I was all ready. I was ready for everything, not a tornado.
While the National Guard and search and rescue teams cleared debris, neighbors, complete strangers came together with tools and trucks.
It's really everybody just like dropping everything and, get to work.
Everyone lending a helping hand in the aftermath.
Chainsaws, cutting things down. People that don't even know each other just rolling up onto their front yard and carrying stuff out. And it's amazing. It's beautiful.
A long road to recovery.
Wellington mom Megan Shirley is still trying to come to grips with how close her and her family came to dying when a tornado tore through her home.
So there was a separate room in the back, the red. You can see the delineation of the colors. And then the front part of the room was my bedroom.
Glass, toys, pieces of furniture are everywhere. Her walls are bent. And Megan tells me this all happened in less than a minute.
It's a low drumming sound, and it does sound to an extent like a train. And then the pressure change, the only way I can describe it is you feel like you're in a vacuum. Your ears are popping, your ears are hurting.
Born in Mississippi, Megan is no stranger to tornadoes. So she shoved her best friend, their 4 kids, and the dog into this small hallway bathroom just in time.
As soon as we closed the door to the bathroom, it hit. And we actually thought we were okay because the bathroom itself was intact. And as everything is calming down, we look down, we see a bunch of glass. We're trying to figure out where it came from. And we opened the door and I looked up to what is supposed to be a hallway, and there was sunlight.
The number of tornadoes that touched down as Milton was making landfall was unusual. Meteorologist Riley Blackwell looks at just how rare this number of tornadoes actually was.
We actually had a tropical tornado outbreak with several significant tornadoes being reported in parts of South Florida. But overall, the state of Florida recorded 126 tornado warnings that were issued before Milton's landfall, which overall is second most in a single day in a single state for tornado warnings. However, in first place, unfortunately, is Alabama, which recorded 134 tornado warnings back on April 27th, 2011. So that's just a reminder that although a hurricane can cause widespread damage from the eye wall and the outer bands itself, we often have to keep an eye on this eastern side. That's why we say the east is the beast for significant tornadoes.
And the 2024 hurricane season is now officially above average. That was the expectation most meteorologists had leading up to the start of the season. All those storms have produced more energy than a typical year. It's known as accumulated cyclone energy. And coming up on the National Weather Desk, we'll continue our coverage of the cleanup and recovery after Hurricane Milton and hear from a storm chaser about what it was like to be on the ground as that storm made landfall.
I'm meteorologist Charlie Lopresti with Look at the Northeast. We have a nice day on tap in the Northeast. Today, look for a lot of sun, seasonable temperatures, and a gusty northwest wind. Those leaves will be blowing around a little bit. As we go into the morning hours today, look for temps generally in the 40s, warming through the 50s, and eventually some 60s. That's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We should have no shortage of sun. A weak front moves through overnight tonight. And Saturday, we're back at it with some sunshine. It's a little windy on Saturday with highs in the 60s to near 70.
I'm Chief Meteorologist Gerard Bailey. Here's a look at the Mid-Atlantic region after a chilly start for your Friday. It's going to be a gorgeous day, lots of sunshine as high pressure is in place. We will see a couple of fronts approaching. The first one on Saturday, not likely to do much except for the upstate, but a colder air mass coming later into Sunday night. So we will be warming up here in the coming days. Your afternoon highs close to 70 degrees across the region. We'll be in the mid to upper 70s here on Saturday.
I'm meteorologist Vitas Reed. Here's a look at your southeast forecast highs. We're seeing temperatures about 80 degrees in Nashville, 84 in Mobile, 74 Atlanta, 71 in Raleigh. A little cooler air along the Carolinas. Looks like temperatures in the mid 80s down in parts of Florida. We'll see plenty of sunshine, high pressure keeping things nice and clear across the southeast. There will be a chance for some spotty showers, possibly in South Florida, but it looks like for the most part things are quiet across the southeast.
And we showed you some dramatic rescues at the top of the show. There was another one at an assisted living facility near Tampa. As Isabel Rosales reports, that is where first responders found more than 100 residents in water up to their waists.
It's terrible. And
the water terrifying.
The water was so cold.
Teresa and over 100 other residents at a Hillsborough County assisted living facility awoke to waist-high water in the middle of the night.
The chairs were just floating, couches were floating, everything was floating.
This employee stunned by the flooding. They thought they were safe because the facility is not in an evacuation zone. Just rainfall reaching to levels they never anticipated. You expect this in the Gulf, you expect this in the Bay, not in areas inland like this. But storm surge isn't the culprit. Instead, it was all the torrential rainfall leading to flash flooding. By 2 a.m, it was an emergency and residents needed out. Some of them on oxygen.
It was quite scary because we had to think on our feet because obviously it's last minute.
You could literally hear that thing coming around the corner. And it just sounded like it was going to take the building with it.
They waited for hours, cold, scared, and some of them without any shoes, until it was safe for deputies to get to them.
And now to Orlando, where flooding and wind damage caused problems, even though the city is in the middle of the state. Gracie Johnson spoke to a furniture maker who saw 2 sides of his stores damaged.
Probably in here we took about 10 inches of water. Next door we have our plastic factory where we do all of our plastic furniture, and same over there. They took about maybe even a little bit more, maybe about 12 inches of water.
The Crowfoot family owns Palm Casual Patio Furniture. They have 23 factories across the state of Florida. Their Orlando location took a hit as Hurricane Milton moved through the state Wednesday night.
When we get a lot of rain in a short period of time, it's tough.
Ike Crowfoot, a part owner of Palm Casual Patio Furniture, said every time they see a hurricane, they have to cut their losses.
I mean, there's always losses. We're fortunate that the actual building itself didn't get damaged. We were kind of anticipating that would be the case.
As for their other business locations, the Tampa location also saw damage from Hurricane Milton.
The Tampa store did take water. We lost a sign there, but for the most part, I think we were very fortunate.
Still, They believe Milton could be the worst aftermath they've faced.
I don't know how high the winds got. I'd assume around 90 mile an hour. I mean, it's the most we've ever seen.
And since Milton made landfall south of Tampa, the city didn't experience a major storm surge. In fact, the bay lost water in a process known as reverse storm surge. Meteorologist Amanda Verrier explains it on TikTok.
Storm surge is when water gets pushed into an area, but there's something called reverse or negative storm surge, and that happens when things get pushed outward instead. So why does this happen? Well, let's get into it. Hurricanes in the northern hemisphere move in a counterclockwise direction. We saw Milton pass south around Sarasota. You could see the counterclockwise winds pushing away from Tampa. So while everyone south of landfall was seeing those onshore winds, that pushing of water, everyone to the north was seeing the opposite, those negative storm surge away from the shoreline. Of course, that water does come back eventually, and you want to make sure you're nowhere near because it can come in very quickly and rise very fast.
Hurricanes can be enormous, like Helene, or smaller, like Milton. So how does the size impact the storm? Well, meteorologist Brandon Stover has a closer look.
Less area impacted with smaller hurricanes. That's obviously a good thing. Not as many people impacted, generally speaking. Larger hurricanes, you're going to have more places impacted. So that's the downfall here. There is some credence there that small hurricanes can spin up a little faster, can strengthen a little faster. We saw this with Hurricane Andrew in 1992, and also to some degree Hurricane Camille back in 1969. That was a relatively small hurricane. Meanwhile, larger hurricanes generally don't strengthen as fast. That's still kind of a generalization, though, because there can obviously be exceptions. You know, what's the ambient environment? What's the air pressure around the hurricane? What's the shape of the hurricane, etc.? You can go on and go on. But I do think overall you can say that smaller hurricanes do have the potential to spin up a little faster. At the same time, smaller hurricanes are going to be more vulnerable to the environmental conditions around them, the wind shear, because they're smaller. Larger systems are going to be a little more tolerant to negative environmental conditions, including stronger wind shear. But at the end of the day, regardless of size, both small and large hurricanes can be dangerous.
And we've been showing you a ton of video of damage and destruction from Milton. Much of that was captured by our storm chaser, Brett Adair, who put himself directly in the path of danger. Meteorologist Ryan Munn spoke to Brett about what it was like being on the ground during the storm.
We were down to the south around Venice Beach when the storm surge actually came in. We started to see some of the homes down there be inundated as the winds became onshore. So again, those floodwaters, they had all kind of debris in them because you still had several pieces of debris that were laying around from the last hurricane, which was Helene.
As Brett was driving just south of Tampa, he came across a disabled vehicle on the side of the road.
And we came up on a vehicle that had rolled off on the southbound side of 75. We got out and attempted to render aid, as well as 2 or 3 other drivers. The windows were knocked out. We got out to check if everybody was okay. We could not find an individual in the vehicle.
He hopes they made it to safety despite the wind gust over 100 miles per hour.
So we encountered tons of downed trees and power lines. Several metal roofing structures ripped off, those gas station awnings. They didn't stand a chance with that type of wind.
In addition to the violent winds, storm surge, and tornadoes, millions of people are without power.
Wow. And you could literally see like the power currents on the lines themselves. That's a phenomenon that I've seen a couple of times. And that's usually when you know with really high winds, the power is going to go down because there are issues down that line somewhere.
On this week's podcast, latest episode, radar meteorologist Emily Gracie spoke to NOAA hurricane hunters about the past, present, and future of hurricane hunting. Here's a sneak peek.
In September of 1961, Hurricane Carla was approaching the coastline of Texas.
The center of Carla moved inland near the Port O'Connor, Port Lavaca area on September 11th.
It made landfall as a Category 4 hurricane with winds of 145 miles per hour and spawned 26 tornadoes as it moved inland.
Although this storm was severe, loss of life was held to a minimum by timely warnings issued by the Weather Bureau and evacuation advice issued by local public safety officials.
Hurricane Carla was the first hurricane to be monitored from start to finish by researchers in the air. This week, we're going off the radar and into the cockpit with the NOAA Hurricane Hunters. We'll hear about their history, the wildest flights, including into Helene. And we'll learn about the next generation of planes they'll be flying into future hurricanes.
You can find Off the Radar on Spotify, Apple, and anywhere you get your podcasts. New episodes are released every Tuesday. If you listen, you might just be able to impress your friends with some amazing weather knowledge. And time now for a short break, but first let's take to the skies and enjoy the changing leaves near Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Good Friday morning, everyone. I'm meteorologist Andrew Buckmichael. A few more clouds starting to move their way in. It's been such a sunny week across the Midwest, but we're still sunny across the Great Lakes and the Ohio Valley, but we're going to see more of those clouds move in, including a few rain showers as we get into your Saturday across the Great Lakes, and then as we get into your Sunday, still a few showers across the Great Lakes and the eastern Ohio Valley.
Good morning, I'm meteorologist Alex Garcia. Here's a look at your regional weather. It's downright cool up in Amarillo at 58 degrees, 66 and 69 deep into South Texas. It's even 68 for our friends out in New Orleans. Very weak system out across North Texas won't be doing much. We'll see a few little scattered showers out toward southeast Oklahoma, but that's pretty much it. Otherwise, looks like another summer day for the most part. I'm meteorologist Alex Garcia. That's a look at your regional weather.
Well, hi there, everybody, and a good Friday morning to you. I'm meteorologist Shannon O'Donnell. We're talking about some heat back out west, including 105 out of Phoenix. Just cannot catch a break from those triple digits in the Valley of the Sun. Meanwhile, beautiful weather in Seattle at 65, 87 hot there in the Great Salt Lake. And we'll see lower pressure pushing toward Cape Mendocino. Perhaps some rain there as we head into the weekend. And that's the scene from here.
You are watching the National Weather Desk.
And time now for our Friday football forecast. Here's meteorologist Katie Morgan.
Let's get right to it and talk about your college matchups. First off, we head to Knoxville, Tennessee, where Florida is taking on UT, and that is looking to be nice for the evening. Some sunshine early in the evening, turning into a mainly clear sky with temperatures in the low 70s. Nice and hot in Texas as we are looking at Texas versus Oklahoma in Dallas, Texas. Temperatures in the mid-90s with mainly sunny skies. And K-State at Colorado. Boulder looking fairly comfortable in the evening hours for a night game with mainly clear to partly cloudy skies. Then we take a look at some of our Sunday matchups, starting off with the Steelers versus the Raiders. Nice and toasty in Las Vegas with sunshine at 90 degrees. A little rain to deal with in Green Bay with the Cardinals in town taking on the Packers. A little chilly, too, sitting at 50. And the Commanders taking on the Ravens in Baltimore. Looking good with plenty of sunshine and temperatures in the mid-70s. Hope everyone is having a great start to your Friday. I'm meteorologist Katie Morgan.
Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. I'm WJLA Senior Meteorologist Brian Vandegraff. Make it a great Friday. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you right back here next Monday.